Hey there! On today's episode of The Cave, we're going to talk about some hilarious examples of some of these hoax studies, but also some of the serious reasons behind them. Hey there, I'm Jared Julia, and welcome back to The Cave. In today's episode, we're going to talk about some of these hoax papers that certain academics have actually been able to pass through and get published in some of these journals. And some of the examples are pretty hilarious. But before I get into that, I wanted to talk about the reason why they do it. Why have all of these hoax papers? What's the point? Well, the point is simply this, that there are a lot of these, what I call in my book, X studies, feminist studies, race studies. These are fake subjects that colleges are offering now. And the reason why they're fake is because their methodology, their academic methodology, is extremely weak. And this weakness has started to infect certain legitimate studies, namely the social sciences. And this is actually a very, very serious problem. So the question is, well, what makes for a strong academic process, and why is that important? Well, in the hard sciences, they have an academic process that you've heard of. It's called the scientific method. And the scientific method starts with a hypothesis, or basically an educated guess, as to what will happen if you do a particular thing. And then what they do is they have a series of experiments where they find out if this hypothesis was legitimate or not. And by the time they get to the end, they either prove the hypothesis or they prove another hypothesis. So an example of this was with my wife. We have 2 cats, and we actually have 3 water bowls. Now, you probably are wondering, why do you have 2 cats and 3 water bowls? Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm the husband, so what do I know? But anyways, we have these 3 water bowls, and what we've noticed is that one of them gets drained almost every day. So one of them we have to fill with water all the time, and the other 2 we don't. And the one that was getting drained all the time was closest to the food. So my wife had a hypothesis, and the hypothesis was that it's the water closest to the food. So what she decided was that if we moved it further away, then the closer one to the food would get drained. So we moved that one over one, and we noticed that same bowl still got drained. So we moved it the furthest away, and we noticed that one got drained. So it was still that same one. So my hypothesis was that it's just the bowl that the cats like. It actually has an image of 2 cats, one gold and one a black tiger cat, which is actually describes our actual cats. So maybe they like drinking out of a bowl that has a picture of them. I don't know. But for whatever reason, they like that bowl the most. And as it turns out, the original hypothesis that it was really the bowl closest to the food turned out to be false through experimentation. So that's basically the way a lot of these academic processes work, is you start with a hypothesis and then prove it or disprove it. But the problem with a lot of these X studies is that they don't do that. They have a hypothesis, and then they simply support that hypothesis through other information. And they really don't do any kind of serious academic process that involves experimentation or anything like that. And so what that has caused in these X studies, and also now in the social sciences, is it's caused a replication crisis. Because using your methodology, somebody should be able to duplicate your findings. And that's really how academics know that they're right, or that they're on the right track, is that they're able to duplicate it. It's almost like that episode in Seinfeld with the soup Nazi, and the soup Nazi says, "No soup for you," to Elaine, and she have soup, and Jerry and are able to eat soup. And Elaine, for the whole episode, are not able to have soup. But then accidentally, somehow, she finds the ingredients of the soup. And the very last shot of that episode, if you'll remember, is Elaine reading very accusingly to the soup Nazi. Parsley finely chopped, and add a bit of garlic. And she's saying all this very accusingly. And as she's saying all this, the soup Nazi's face, he's becoming, and he's just has this look of horror, and that's really the last shot of the episode. Well, that's not actually how the scientific method works. In fact, it works the exact opposite of the way the soup Nazi works. If the soup Nazi actually conformed to the scientific method, he would have given away his recipe away to all of the other restaurateurs in the city that have soup on their menu. And then each of those cooks in their own kitchen would have had to have duplicated the soup Nazi's soup. And if their soup didn't taste exactly like the soup Nazi's, then they would have discussed why that dichotomy happened. Where does that difference come from? And that would have been scrutinized, and then they would have done it all over again. And that's essentially a serious academic process, is being able to duplicate somebody else's results using their same methodology or recipe. And of course, when you can't do that for one situation, then the credibility of that academic is actually called into question. But when you can't do it for a bunch of findings, or when you can't do it for all of the findings in a particular field, that's a replication crisis. And that's what's happening in a lot of these studies nowadays. And it's becoming a real problem. So the purpose of hoax studies is to expose how bad or how weak a lot of these academic processes are. So what they do is they come up with a fake hypothesis and have a bunch of fake data, and they see if they can get it published in these journals. And very often they're able to do it. So some of the people that I write about in my book, some of the things that they got done were, one of them was a feminist Mein Kampf. And another one was watching dogs hump each other at a dog park, and they related it to rape culture on college campuses, and that got published. And so they were able to show, look, this is obviously a bad methodology that you're obviously using, to get things into your journal. And so it does embarrass these academics, but it also shows how weak their academic process is, which is important to kind of root out this bad these bad academic pursuits. So even though a lot of these things are silly, they and some of these examples are kind of funny when you really look at them, they do have a serious. They do serve a serious purpose. But the other weird thing is that you can't always tell the difference between the spoof and the serious journal entries. There was one that I read that was an actual journal entry, and it was a woman who found she was shopping for her daughter, I guess not for her daughter, but maybe for a niece or for a friend's daughter. She wanted to find a Wonder Woman doll. And she went to a toy store and wasn't able to find any. They weren't in stock, but they had plenty of Superman, plenty of Batman. So she went to different stores and she couldn't find one. Or maybe she found one eventually. And she wrote about this, how there was the lack of Wonder Woman dolls out there, and how it related to how it related to the fact that how dominant the patriarchy is in our society. And I remember reading it thinking, you offered no explanation as to why they were out of stock. I mean, it could have been that a lot of people were buying Wonder Woman dolls. I mean, there's a variety of reasons why stores don't have dolls in stock or don't have any particular item in stock. Sometimes it is a supply chain issue, but sometimes it's just popularity of the item. Like during the pandemic when you couldn't get toilet paper, it didn't mean no one liked toilet paper. It just meant everyone was in a panic buy and was stocking up on them. So, so it's... So even though that's another funny example, it wasn't a hoax example. It was a very serious journal that was published in a feminist journal, and it just shows you how ridiculous some of these entries are. So, anyways, in the comments below, I have some of my funniest hoax papers that got published. By the people at New Discourses. So I thought you could read through it and you'd find it pretty funny what they were able to get under the radar with some of these X studies. But anyways, thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Well, if you liked what you saw, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to smack that bell.